It took him 25 years to learn the secret of his power, and only one night to lose everything. Meet Jin, the Runcandel nobody wanted, the family's discarded loser. At 25, the god of shadows appeared before him with a contract in hand, because someone had cursed him so deeply that the power inside him had been locked away his entire life. For the first time, he reveled in his powers, only to be killed that very night by elite soldiers. He never got a single day to master his gift. Suddenly, he wakes up reborn, back to the day of the family's sword ceremony. He chooses the strongest sword, and he won't repeat the mistakes of his past life, because this time he knows the truth. Jin begins rebuilding his power from the very start. Reborn with all his memories, Jin trains in secret, mastering forbidden magic and swordsmanship to rise faster than anyone in his clan and shatter everything they thought they knew about power. Jin awakens an ancient dragon, Muracan, who becomes his unstoppable guardian and trains him in forbidden shadow techniques, turning him into a force even the strongest enemies can't ignore. As Jin grows, he rises to flag bearer. Commanding elite troops and facing world-shaking enemies, his mastery of sword, magic, and shadow pushes him to the brink of the legendary Genesis Knight rank. But before all that, let's go back to where his story started. Jin Runcandel is the greatest failure in the history of the world's strongest swordsman clan. While every other Runcandel reaches the 1-star knight rank by age 13, Jin is a social pariah who struggles until he is 25 just to hit that basic milestone. This lack of talent brings shame to his bloodline, and his own siblings eventually kick him out of the family because they can't stand looking at his weakness anymore. He spends his youth believing he is simply destined to be a loser, unaware that his entire life has been a lie. The truth only comes to light after Jin leaves home and discovers a shocking affinity for magic. He is so gifted that the god of shadows, Solderet, approaches him to strike a divine contract. Solderet reveals that Jin wasn't born weak. He was actually suppressed by a high-level curse called the Bladed Illusion. This trivial spell had been eating his potential since childhood, likely placed there by someone who feared what he could become. Once the god of shadows shatters these magical chains, Jin's true power awakens, turning him into a genius capable of mastering both the blade and the highest tiers of magic simultaneously. But just as Jin prepares to climb to the top of the world and take revenge on the family that abandoned him, disaster strikes. While he is unconscious from exhaustion after a training session, 3 9-star Knights warriors capable of leveling entire kingdoms launch a surprise raid on the capital. Jin never even gets the chance to draw his sword or cast a spell. He is caught in the crossfire of their rampage and suffers fatal wounds while he is still asleep. As Jin lies dying in a pool of his own blood, the irony of his situation is unbearable. He finally has the power to become a legend, yet he is losing his life to a random attack he couldn't even fight back against. He feels the cold grip of death as his vision fades, wondering why the heavens would grant him the ultimate talent only to snatch it away before he could use it. With no one by his side and his divine patron silent, Jin Runcandel closes his eyes and prepares for the end of a life filled with regrets. The last thing Jin remembers is the spray of his own blood and the sound of a baby wailing as his body was torn in two. He assumes the cries belong to some poor soul caught in the crossfire of the 9-star Knights, yet the sound grows louder and more rhythmic until he realizes the screams are tearing from his own throat. He isn't dying in a pool of blood but breathing his first breath as the youngest son of the Runcandel clan. Returning to the world on the exact day of his original birth means he is trapped in the same cycle of a family that prizes the sword above all else. This creates a massive problem because his past life was defined by a magical curse that made him a failure in his family's eyes, and he fears that being reborn as the same child means he still carries that same invisible weight. A full year passes in a blur of humiliating diapers and mind-numbing naps as Jin waits for his tiny body to catch up to his 28 years of memories. He knows he has to find a way to learn magic in a house that executes magicians, but first, he must survive the Runcandel selection. This ritual forces a 1-year-old to crawl through a forest of lethal blades to pick an item that supposedly dictates their entire destiny. While most babies grab the closest shiny object, Jin understands the stakes are much higher. His father, the demigod knight Siren, and his 12 throat siblings are all watching to see if this new spare is worth the effort of raising or if he is just another weakling to be discarded. Jin decides to gamble on the superstitions of his past to secure his immediate safety. Instead of grabbing the first sword he reaches, he uses every ounce of his infant strength to zigzag through the sharp steel, ignoring the easier choices. This forces the gathered crowd into a stunned silence as he bypasses legendary weapons and crawls toward the very center of the hall. He eventually collapses from exhaustion, his tiny hand bleeding as it grips the hilt of Barisada, the founder's sword. This weapon is the clan's ultimate emblem, a blade traditionally touched only by those destined to become the patriarch. By intentionally choosing the one sword that signifies absolute leadership, Jin has flipped his survival odds in an instant. In his first life, this choice was a fluke that he never lived up to, but now it serves as a shield against his siblings' early cruelty. His father's face twitches with a rare spark of interest as he declares the ritual over, ordering Jin to be taken to Storm Castle for elite training. Jin has successfully bought himself the time and status he needs to grow, though he knows that by claiming the seat of the patriarch so early, he has just placed a massive target on his back. 6 years have passed since the selection ritual, and Jin Runcandel is rotting from boredom. He is a grown man trapped in a 7-year-old's body, forced to endure the Storm Castle, a lightning-scarred fortress where the clan's children are sequestered to prevent assassinations. While the isolation drives his older siblings to become violent monsters, Jin is simply waiting for his chance to break free. But the peace is shattered by the Tona twins. Daytona and Haytona are 9-year-old bullies who have spent the last year escalating their torment, from salting Jin's food to placing venomous scorpions in his bed. They believe Jin is a defenseless target because his nanny Gilly is away for the day. They corner him in a lonely hallway, mocking his legendary sword and threatening to break his bones. They think they hold all the power. They are wrong. The power dynamic shifts instantly when Jin insults them with a smirk. Before the twins can process his defiance, Jin closes the distance. He isn't a helpless child, he is a regressor with the combat instincts of a master. With a fist that feels like solid ice, he buries a punch into Haytona's gut and catches Daytona with a bone-shattering hook to the jaw. This isn't a playground scuffle, it is a calculated execution. Jin straddles their unconscious bodies, raining down blows to ensure they never dare to look him in the eye again. When a guardian knight discovers the bloody scene, Jin doesn't flinch. He coldly commands the elite warrior to carry his brothers out into the heart of a lethal rainstorm. Though the knight is shocked by the 7-year-old's kingly aura, he cannot refuse a direct order from a Runcandel. He leaves the twins to develop acute pneumonia at the foot of a bird's grave they had desecrated. This brutal display of dominance changes everything. Word of the incident reaches the clan patriarch, Jin Runcandel, deep in the monster-infested Black Sea. Instead of anger, the news brings a smile to the father's face. Jin has proven he possesses the ruthless blood of their lineage. Intrigued by the sudden rise of his youngest son, the most powerful man in the world decides it is time to return to the Storm Castle to see the boy for himself. The return of the Genesis Knight, Jin Runcandel, has turned the world upside down. After 5 years in the Black Sea, his sudden move toward the Storm Castle has every major power on high alert, fearing a global war. Flag-bearers and elite knights have abandoned imperial missions just to line the stairs in a display of absolute terror and respect. But while the world braces for a massacre, Jin has traveled all this way for one simple reason: to see his youngest son Jin. The Tona twins are summoned first, and the atmosphere in the throne room is suffocating. Jin demands to know their mistake, but the terrified 9-year-olds can only offer excuses. Desperate to deflect their shame, they claim Jin used a forbidden power that was an aura to beat them. By hinting at magic, a blasphemous act for a Runcandel, they hope to see Jin executed. However, Jin sees right through their cowardice. He coldly warns them that if they continue acting like pathetic victims, they won't survive the clan's brutal hierarchy. When Jin enters, he doesn't see a father. He sees the strongest and cruelest man he's ever known. Drawing on his memories from his past life, Jin refuses to act like a scared child. He greets Jin as patriarch rather than father, acknowledging the formal weight of the visit. This calculated show of respect immediately catches Jin off guard. The boy isn't just talented. He has the composure of a seasoned warrior, and Jin is visibly impressed by the 7-year-old's sharp intuition. The true test comes when Jin asks Jin to identify his brother's mistake. Jin doesn't hesitate, stating that their failure was not seeking immediate revenge. In the Runcandel clan, a debt of blood must always be repaid, and by crying to their father instead of picking up a sword, the twins proved they were weak. This answer is exactly what the demigod wanted to hear. Jin has successfully solidified his status as a prodigy, but the tension spikes as Jin drops the final dangerous question. What was the secret power he used to crush his brothers? The air in the throne room is heavy as Jin faces the strongest man on the continent. His father, Jin Runcandel, demands to know the origin of the strange shadow energy Jin used to crush his brothers. Jin knows exactly what it is, but he plays the part of a naive child to mask his regression. He claims he doesn't know the name of this power and asks his father to name it for him. This calculated innocence catches the legendary knight off guard. Jin is visibly shaken because he recognizes the dark aura of Solderet, the god of shadows. This god once protected their clan's founder but had seemingly abandoned the Runcandels 1,000 years ago. Seeing the shadows dancing in his son's palm, Jin wonders if Jin is the reincarnation of their first patriarch. He explains that the power belongs to a god and cannot be renamed by a mortal. When Jin boldly asks if this god is stronger than his father, Jin laughs with genuine joy for the first time in years. This interaction secures Jin's future. In his past life, he was a talentless outcast, but now he has his father's direct interest and approval to use his godly powers. When Jin asks how he will use this strength, Jin initially lies and says it is for the clan. However, Jin sees right through the deception. This forces Jin to be honest, admitting he wants the power for himself. Instead of being angry, Jin is impressed by the boy's ambition and leaves the castle with high expectations. With the pressure of the meeting gone, Jin reflects on the advantages of his new life. He successfully blocked a high-level curse that crippled him in his past, proving his contract with Solderet makes him immune to such petty magic. As the powerful clan members depart the castle, Jin receives a parting gift from his sister Mary, a phoenix heart. This rare treasure will allow him to rapidly increase his strength in secret. He is no longer the failure of the Runcandel family. but a hidden monster preparing to take everything for himself. Jin's third sister, Mary Runcandel, is a freak of nature even by their family's elite standards. Known as Stormwind Mary, she became a 6-star knight before even hitting 20, a level of power most warriors only see in their dreams. Despite her terrifying strength, she remains one of the few siblings who showed Jin genuine kindness in his past life. For an entire month, Jin's nanny Gilly toils over a stove to decoct the heart into a potent elixir. The process is so intense that the kitchen heat scorches the surrounding hallways, but the payoff is worth the chaos. Consuming the heart at a young age grants a child permanent resistance to fire and massive physical fortification. While Gilly views it as a nutritional miracle, Jin sees a strategic opportunity. He knows that as a Runcandel, learning magic is a death sentence, but he refuses to give up his dream of becoming a magic swordsman. If he can grow strong enough in secret, the rules won't matter. But Jin isn't just focused on the soup, he's playing a long game. His older brothers, the Tona twins, have been hovering around the kitchen, drooling over the scent of the elixir. In his past life, these two were mindless bullies, but now they are terrified of Jin's newfound coldness. Sensing their desperation, Jin offers them a deal. He will share the phoenix heart if they spend the entire day digging a massive hole behind a bird's grave in the backyard. The twins agree, unaware that they are being used as manual labor for a heist. Their Runcandel blood gives them superhuman endurance, allowing them to dig deep into the earth until they strike a hidden underground wall. This isn't just a hole, it's a shortcut to the Storm Castle's secret archives. Beneath the foundations lies a hoard of stolen magic tomes and secret techniques from clans the Runcandels have crushed over centuries. By nightfall, the twins are exhausted and drenched in rain, having successfully cleared the path to the restricted vault. When they come to collect their reward, Jin coldly hands them a single spoonful of soup each. They are outraged, but one look from Jin silences their complaints. He has successfully tricked his enemies into digging his way to absolute power. While the twins sulk over their meager payment, Jin prepares to infiltrate the archives, ready to master the forbidden arts that will ensure his survival in this brutal family. Rain lashes against the Storm Castle, providing the perfect cover for a 7-year-old boy about to commit high treason against his own bloodline. Jin stands at the bottom of a deep pit, staring at a stone wall that separates him from the clan's most guarded secrets. To the knights and servants above, he is merely a grieving child praying for a dead bird, but in reality, Jin is a reborn master of magic preparing to reclaim a power he hasn't felt in 7 years. The wall is sturdy, but it lacks the reinforcement to withstand a direct magical assault. Jin knows a physical strike would create an explosion loud enough to alert every 7-star knight in the castle, so he chooses a more surgical approach. He presses his small hands against the stone and activates Earth Resonance, a basic 1-star spell that makes the structure vibrate until it begins to crack. He watches as the wall crumbles into fine dust, revealing a hidden corridor that has been sealed for generations. This is the secret underground sector, reserved only for the clan's elite flag-bearers, the heroes and leaders of the family. In his previous life, Jin was deemed a failure and never allowed to step foot here, but now he walks the dim, torch-lit hallway barefoot to avoid leaving tracks, his heart heavy with the realization that he is finally claiming the birthright he was once denied. As he approaches a massive steel gate, a large magic circle glows on the floor, acting as a primitive security system. To the superstitious Runcandels, this magic circle of blood and barrier is a divine test of their lineage, but Jin's past knowledge allows him to see it for what it truly is. A basic sensor that only checks if a person is healthy and human. He bites his cheek, letting a few drops of blood fall onto the runes to disable the hidden traps. The sound of grinding gears echoes through the hall as the lethal defenses retract, leaving the path to the final chamber wide open. The massive doors groan open, but instead of the expected library of secret techniques, Jin finds himself staring at a glass coffin. Inside lies the human form of the dragon itself, preserved in a deep slumber. This unexpected discovery freezes Jin in his tracks, forcing him to realize that the secrets of the Storm Castle are far more dangerous and alive than he ever imagined. Deep beneath the Storm Castle, Jin Runcandel stands before a legend. The black dragon Muracan, defeated by the clan's first patriarch, lies frozen in a sparkling glass coffin. But for Jin, a hibernating dragon is just a decorative paperweight. He isn't here for myths, he's here for the Runcandel secret library. The library is a pathetic, dusty room with a single shelf, yet it holds the stolen essence of every martial clan the Runcandels ever crushed. To a normal 7-year-old, these are just books. To Jin, who remembers the sting of his past life's failures, this is a goldmine. He targets the Kungan clan's swordsmanship first, but reality hits hard. Even with his past life knowledge, the techniques are too advanced for his current 3-star vessel. He can't understand the words, but he can copy them. He begins a grueling secret mission, transcribing 10 pages a day into a hidden notebook. It's a race against time, as he only has a 2-hour window while his nanny, Gilly, thinks he's mourning a dead bird at its grave. For 2 months, the routine works perfectly. The servants whisper that he's possessed by the bird's ghost, and the Tona twins are too terrified to even look at him. However, Gilly's growing concern threatens his access. To protect his secret, Jin pivots. He drops the act of a grieving child and adopts the cold gravity of a Runcandel heir. He tells Gilly he is visiting the grave to study the concept of death and prepare for the lives he will eventually take. The lie works too well. Gilly is moved to tears by his maturity and grants him total privacy. With his path cleared, Jin returns to the underground chamber, feeling the thrill of his own genius. He spends his days rhythmically scratching his pencil against paper, slowly stealing the world's greatest martial secrets page by page. He is convinced his remaining years at the castle will be a peaceful, silent heist, but the silence is shattered. As Jin rests his aching fingers, a sharp click echoes through the chamber. Behind the sliding door, the glass coffin, the one holding the ancient black dragon, is opening. The silence of the underground archives is shattered by a sound Jin never expected to hear: the clicking of a glass coffin. For 2 months, his only companions have been his pencil and the wind, but now the legendary black dragon Muracan is waking up 1,000 years ahead of schedule. Panic surges through Jin as he hears feet hitting the floor behind the sliding door. He realizes his very presence and the regression in time must have triggered this premature awakening. He has to decide in seconds whether to run for the guards or face a creature known for a temper as legendary as its power. Choosing bravery over flight, Jin opens the door to find a handsome, black-haired man standing where the dragon once slept. He tries to play the role of a frightened child, calling Muracan the clan's guardian, but the dragon snorts in derisive laughter. The air begins to warp with immense mana as Muracan mocks the idea of being a guardian to the Runcandels. However, the tension breaks when the dragon catches a scent. He begins sniffing the air like a starved predator, realizing that the thick, divine energy of the god Solderet is radiating from the small boy standing before him. This realization shifts the power dynamic instantly. Muracan demands to be taken to Solderet's contractor, unaware that the great hero he seeks is the 7-year-old child in front of him. Jin realizes that if he lies, he loses his freedom and his primary advantage. If he tells the truth, he gains a legendary ally. He manifests a cluster of shadow energy in his palm, causing the dragon to stumble back in sheer comical disbelief. Muracan goes through a whirlwind of denial and anger, screaming at the silent god for choosing a chestnut-sized brat as the promised partner of the millennium. Acceptance eventually settles in as the dragon realizes he cannot escape his ancient oath. The human facade dissolves into swirling dark smoke, filling the underground chamber with the massive, scaled form of the true black dragon. The petty bickering vanishes, replaced by a voice that shakes the very foundations of Storm Castle. Muracan formally introduces himself as the proxy of Solderet and Jin's lifelong partner. Despite his trembling heart, Jin stands tall and claims his name, securing an alliance that will fundamentally change his odds of surviving the Runcandel family's deadly throne war. The weight of the Runcandel name is a death sentence for the weak, and at 8 years old, Jin is finally clearing the board of his first obstacles. The Tona twins are officially leaving Storm Castle, and their departure means Jin no longer has to play the role of the bullied younger brother. For the next 2 years, the castle is his private sanctuary, free from the prying eyes of their nanny, Emma. She acted as a shadow, waiting for a single slip-up to bury him, but Jin has spent months outsmarting her. As the carriages prepare to roll out into the endless rain, the power dynamic has completely shifted. The once terrifying twins now tremble at the sight of him, and Emma is left with a parting whisper that freezes the blood in her veins. He lets her know he sees every hidden intent, ensuring that while she lives, she will never feel safe from his reach again. With the distractions gone, Jin returns to the underground shadows where his real path to power lies. His secret ally, the black dragon Muracan, is a far cry from the majestic legends of old. The great beast spends his days sulking over a shortage of strawberry pies and scratching himself in the dark. Yet this childish slob is the only being capable of unlocking Jin's true potential. They are bound together as accomplices in a crime against the clan, sharing a connection where Jin's spiritual energy acts as the literal sun to Muracan's survival. The dragon's strength is currently locked behind Jin's own growth, making every training session a high-stakes investment in their mutual future. The pressure of his lineage weighs heavily on Jin as he compares his progress to the legends of the past. He has already transcribed 50 secret tomes and can comprehend advanced swordsmanship that would baffle most adults. But in the world of the Runcandels, being a once-in-a-century genius is still not enough to surpass his father, the Genesis Knight. Muracan doesn't sugarcoat the reality. In a pure contest of blades, Jin's father is a wall he might never climb. This revelation could break a lesser warrior, but it only forces Jin to look beyond the edge of a sword. The path to eclipsing his father and the first patriarch, Tamar, lies in the forbidden synergy of shadow, magic, and steel. Muracan reveals that Jin carries the favor of Solderet, the god known as the Infinite, meaning his ceiling doesn't actually exist. While his siblings focus solely on the way of the sword, Jin is told to abandon standard martial arts for now and obsess over his spiritual power. The next 2 years are no longer just about survival. They are about expanding his capacity to hold the void, ensuring that when he finally steps out into the world, he isn't just another Runcandel swordsman, but something the world has never seen. The path to absolute power is paved with secrets, and for 8-year-old Jin Runcandel, those secrets are now a matter of life and death. In the depths of the Storm Castle, the black dragon Muracan reveals a truth that could get them both executed. The Runcandel clan wasn't always just a family of swordsmen. They were once the world's ultimate magic swordsmen, a history erased by a humiliating pact with their rivals, the Zipfel clan. To reclaim this lost legacy, Jin must master the art of spiritual power, but the journey begins with something even more dangerous: learning magic within a family that considers it high treason. The training starts with a test of mana, a basic requirement before Jin can touch the rarer spiritual energy. Muracan expects a long, grueling process of awakening, but Jin's past life as a 5-star magician gives him an unfair advantage. Without thinking, he manifests a perfect mana sphere in seconds, a feat only achieved by the legendary patriarchs of the Zipful clan. The dragon is ecstatic, convinced he's found a once-in-a-millennium genius, while Jin realizes he must carefully throttle his progress. If he shows too much strength too fast, the attention he draws could lead his father to discover his forbidden studies before he's strong enough to survive the fallout. A year passes in a blur of secret lessons and smuggled apple pies. Jin balances the grueling physical expectations of a Runcandel with the hidden refinement of his magic, aiming to reach the 3-star level in secret. By his 9th birthday, he has successfully stayed under the radar, celebrating a quiet, desolate party with his loyal nanny and the castle guards. The peace is short-lived, however, as a sudden arrival shatters the isolation of the storm castle. The heavy gates swing open for Luna Runcandel, the eldest sibling and a monstrous 9-star knight who looms over the succession war like a shadow. She hasn't come for a simple birthday greeting, and her presence brings a new level of risk to Jin's double life. With her massive axe sword strapped to her back, Luna represents the peak of Runcandel's martial pride. If she senses the mana swirling within her younger brother, Jin's second life might end before he even turns 10. Jin is barely 8 years old, but his birthday celebration has just become a survival trial. The sudden arrival of his eldest sister, Luna Runcandel, the legendary White Whale, sends the entire Storm Castle into a panic. In his past life, Jin remembered her as an aloof, untouchable monster nearing the rank of a sword emperor. Her arrival is a massive risk, because if she senses the forbidden black dragon Muracan hiding in the basement, Jin's new life ends before it truly begins. When they finally meet, Luna's gaze is sharp enough to pierce stone, carrying the weight of a warrior who has slaughtered thousands. Jin braces for an interrogation, fearing she has discovered his secret magic. But as they speak, the tension shifts in a way he never predicted. Instead of cold steel, he finds a dry sort of kindness. Luna isn't here to hunt him, she is here to check on the brother she hasn't seen in years. This realization allows Jin to gamble on honesty, admitting that he feels on edge because they are practically strangers. This honesty breaks Luna's icy facade, revealing a face full of sorrow and regret. She realizes that the Runcandel family's culture of betrayal has forced even her youngest brother to view her as a potential predator. She clears the room to speak privately, warning Jin that their other siblings are already plotting against him because of their father's growing interest. She makes a shocking plea. She wants Jin to abandon the bloody race for the throne so he can find actual happiness. However, Jin cannot accept a life of hiding. He reveals to her that an assassination attempt has already been made against him, proving that the war has already started whether he likes it or not. This news sends Luna into a terrifying rage, her aura shaking the very hall as she demands to know which sibling dared to strike. Though Jin keeps the details vague, the bond between them solidifies. He realizes that in a family defined by backstabbing, he has found a powerful, genuine ally. Before she departs, Luna gives Jin a priceless artifact, the pendant of the demonic Beast King. It serves as a literal extra life, allowing him to summon her to his side in any life-threatening emergency. Even more surprising is Muracan's revelation that Luna definitely sensed the dragon's presence but chose to stay silent. By protecting his secret and giving him a way to call for help, Luna has changed Jin's survival odds entirely. He is no longer a lone child playing a dangerous game. He now has the strongest knight in the family rooting for him from the shadows. 6 months of peace at the Storm Castle have been a lie for Jin Runcandel. While the knights grew bored, he was busy rewriting the laws of genius. He didn't just meet the goals the ancient dragon Muracan set, he shattered them. In a single year, Jin cut his mana transfer time from 10 minutes to 5 seconds and mastered mana release in half the time predicted. Even a legendary dragon can't help but feel a bit insulted by how easy the kid makes it look. But Jin isn't just fast, he's meticulous. In his past life, he sprinted toward power and left his foundation full of holes, but this time he's taking a slow stroll to see every detail of the scenery. He's realized that his previous master, a 12-year-old brat in this timeline, was right about one thing. Talent like this gets you killed or alienated in the outside world. To stay ahead of the monsters waiting for him, Jin has already secretly transcribed every forbidden tome in the clan's library. Jin leaves the Storm Castle not as a child, but as a growing powerhouse carrying 3 legendary treasures: Orgel's Pendant, the Secret Tomes, and the Phoenix Heart. The heart is the most vital, as it grants him a rising immunity to extreme heat. Currently, Jin has absorbed half its power, allowing him to hold his finger in a candle flame without feeling a thing. This resistance is the only way to eventually control a Phoenix familiar, a beast whose very presence incinerates its own summoner. This gift came from his sister Mary, a battle-crazed maniac who only gave it to Jin so he could grow strong enough for her to kill later. Jin accepts this twisted affection because surviving the Runcandel family means meeting every lethal expectation placed on him. To prepare, he spends every waking second training. Heavy snow turns the world white as Jin descends from Storm Castle, but the serene landscape hides a lethal trap. A sudden barrage of 3-star icicle shot magic pierces their horses and kills the coachman instantly, forcing the carriage to a violent halt. While the Guardian Knights Jerome and Holtz rush into the tree line to counterattack, Jin's nanny, Gilly, shields him with a gaze full of killing intent. She is a 7-star warrior, yet even with her protection, the situation is dire because they are stranded in knee-deep snow against an unknown number of assassins. The danger shifts from external to internal when Jin realizes a chilling detail. The Guardian Knights have broken Runcandel protocol by leaving him completely unattended. This realization forces Jin to act, signaling to Gilly that the men they are traveling with are either traitors or imposters. Gilly's fury erupts at her own lapse in judgment, and she immediately bisects the metal carriage with her claws to prevent any internal traps from springing. She scoops up Jin and sprints toward the sounds of battle, determined to uncover the truth behind this betrayal. They arrive to find Jerome and Holtz fighting a group of 20 attackers who identify themselves as the Black King mercenaries and the Yuta clan. These newcomers claim they were commissioned by the Runcandel clan to rescue Jin, creating a chaotic standoff. Jin calmly observes the flow of combat and notices the two knights are struggling against 5-star opponents, proving they are weak pretenders rather than the elite 7-star warriors they claim to be. This power disparity confirms his suspicions these men are merely puppets in a larger conspiracy. The tension snaps when the fake Jerome mocks Gilly as a Runcandel lapdog, prompting Jin to issue a cold, decisive command: kill one and disable the other for interrogation. Gilly executes the order with terrifying efficiency, moving so fast she creates a sonic boom. In a mere 7 seconds, she decapitates the first imposter and severs both arms of the second. The mercenaries stand frozen in awe, realizing that Jin's nanny is a force of nature far beyond their own capabilities. With the surviving imposter pinned at his feet, Jin learns the attackers are zealots of the rival Zipfel clan. The man spits out a warning that the Runcandel era is ending, but Jin remains unfazed, retorting that his own era is just beginning. Instead of wasting time on torture, Jin demonstrates his growing aura by smashing the ground beside the man's head and orders Gilly to toss the armless survivor into the snow. He leaves the man to crawl back to his masters as a bloody message, marking the first time Jin has successfully navigated a high-stakes assassination attempt since his rebirth. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on as the Black King mercenaries took over as Jin's new escorts. These were battle-hardened veterans used to blood and torture, yet they found themselves shivering in the presence of a 10-year-old. Jin walked with a cold, terrifying authority that didn't match his small stature, making even the roughest soldiers act like nervous gentlemen just to avoid his wrath. While they trekked through the heavy snow, Jin noticed his nanny, Gilly, looking somber. She was still beating herself up for failing to spot the imposters back at Storm Castle, but Jin knew better. In his past life, Gilly was the only one who stayed loyal to him until the very end, even when it cost her everything. He ordered her to stop dwelling on the mistake, not because he was angry, but because he needed her focused and strong if they were to survive the journey ahead. As they moved, Jin's mind turned to the mastermind behind the perfect disguises used by the assassins. He knew it was the work of Bouvard Gaston, a lunatic artist who viewed transformation as a medium for chaos. While Jin considered hunting him down later, the immediate priority was reaching the capital. When they finally stopped to rest at an inn, a familiar black cat appeared at the window. It was Muracan, the great black dragon, acting like a playful pet to get inside. The peaceful moment shattered when Muracan transformed into a human and face planted onto the floor, causing a massive crash. Gilly burst into the room and immediately pinned the assassin to the ground with her lethal claws. To keep his nanny from accidentally killing a legendary dragon, Jin had to come clean. He revealed his contract with the gods Solderet and Muracan's true identity, turning Gilly from a confused protector into a shocked accomplice. This new trio, a boy, a dragon, and a nanny, formed a secret pact of silence. They shared a laugh over the ridiculous risks of dragon transformation, but the mood shifted as they reached the transfer gate. There, Jin ran into Baradin Zipfel, the future prodigy of his clan's greatest rival. Baradin tried to provoke him as a test, but Jin didn't flinch. He met the Zipfel heir's gaze with a chilling confidence, reminding the future patriarch that in the world of monsters, a child's finger is a small price to pay for disrespect. Sitting in a circle within the quiet of an inn, Jin finally learns the true danger of a dragon's transformation. Muracan explains that staying in a small form for too long risks a permanent loss of self, where the mighty beast eventually gains the mind of the animal it mimics. This nearly turned the legendary dragon into a common house cat forever, a thought that sends Gilly into a rare fit of laughter. While the atmosphere is light, the stakes remain high. Muracan must return to his feline disguise to keep their secret, as Jin is not yet strong enough to protect a dragon in human form. The journey continues under the watchful eyes of the Black King mercenaries, who deliver the group to the Mytel Kingdom's transfer gate. They are headed for the Garden of Swords, the heart of Runcandel power, but a shadow looms over their arrival. Gilly fears the clan's reaction to Jin's secret magical contracts, as the Runcandels harbor a deep, violent hatred for any magic within their bloodline. This tension snaps into focus when the waiting room door swings open to reveal the one group more dangerous than a disgruntled relative: the Zipfel clan. Face to face with the Runcandels' eternal rivals, a young noble named Baradin Zipfel immediately hurls insults to test Jin's resolve. The air thickens with the threat of unsheathed steel, but the confrontation takes a sharp turn when Muracan, in cat form, leaps into Baradin's arms only to shred the boy's nose with his claws. This moment of chaos breaks the ice, revealing Baradin not as a mindless enemy, but as the future 9-star prodigy of the Zipfel family. Baradin offers a handshake and a warning about the cost of war, attempting to play the role of a diplomat. However, Jin sees through the posturing. He coldly reminds the Zipfel heir that their fathers wouldn't start a world war over a few severed fingers, they would simply settle the debt with gold. By standing his ground against the world's most talented young magician, Jin proves he has the mental fortitude to match his growing power. He silences the future patriarch, demanding the one thing he values most before returning to the lion's den of his own family: a little bit of peace and quiet. Jin Runcandel's return to the Garden of Swords was a silent declaration of war, beginning the moment he stepped off the teleportation gate. His travel companion, Baradin Zipfel, watched him with a curious, almost obsessive gaze, sensing that the 10-year-old boy would soon shake the foundations of the world. While Baradin viewed Jin as a future lifelong rival, Jin saw only a nuisance he might eventually have to discipline. The two heirs represented the peak of opposing powers, yet as the gates hummed with blue mana, they were whisked away to vastly different receptions, the Runcandels to luxury, and the Zipfels to the cold prejudice of a world divided by their bloodlines. The teleportation left the legendary black dragon Muracan retching like a common beast, but there was no time for recovery. As they stepped into the Hoofster Alliance, the atmosphere shifted to one of absolute authority. They were met by a battalion of guardian knights and a steel carriage destined for the Garden of Swords. This landmark was more than a home. It was a graveyard of steel where thousands of blades were planted in the earth, honoring only those who had brought prosperity to the clan. In his past life, Jin's greatest failure was being too weak to earn a place among these swords, but this time he carried the secrets of a regressor and the contract of a god. He wasn't just coming home to survive, he was coming to dominate. The tension reached a breaking point as the carriage stopped before the entire Runcandel bloodline, including his 12 siblings and his formidable parents. Every direct descendant had gathered, a rare occurrence that signaled the weight of Jin's return. When his father, Siron, questioned the cat in Jin's arms, the boy didn't flinch. He claimed he had acquired the creature rather than simply picking it up, a distinction that earned a rare, approving grin from the world's strongest knight. By naming the cat Nabi Runcandel, Jin effectively insulted his siblings' sense of elitism. Yet he stood his ground, claiming the name gave him the responsibility to kill anyone who dared touch his property. This bold defiance immediately painted a target on Jin's back, but it also served as a grim reminder to the Tona twins of the trauma he had inflicted on them years prior. As the family moved toward the banquet hall, the air was thick with hidden killing intent and the shadows of a past curse. Jin looked at his siblings, knowing one of them had tried to destroy him in his cradle, and realized that while they were currently stronger, he possessed a ruthlessness they couldn't fathom. The celebration was a mask for the bloodshed to come, marking the official start of Jin's climb through the shitty hellhole of his family's hierarchy. 4 years after his return to the Runcandel main house, 14-year-old Jin is trapped in a grueling double life of elite training. By day, he endures the brutal physical regimen of Garon Altamiro, a 7-star knight whose lessons are so intense they regularly break the clan's top cadets. In his past life, Jin was a disgrace who collapsed under this pressure, but now he stands unfazed while those around him wheeze on the verge of death. This shift in strength has flipped his reputation from a failure to a terrifying prodigy, but it has also painted a target on his back, earning him the bitter jealousy of his siblings. During a lunch break, Jin focuses on a quiet commoner boy named Bellup Schmitz. In the previous timeline, Bellup was kicked out for being too weak, only to later become a ruthless, blood-soaked executioner for a rival empire before taking his own life in regret. Jin recognizes that Bellup is a diamond in the rough whose trauma turned him into a monster. By sharing his food and offering rare encouragement, Jin aims to rewrite the boy's destiny, hoping to secure a powerful, loyal knight for his own future while saving a kindred soul from a miserable end. Back at his quarters, the tension breaks with a touch of absurdity as Jin finds the 1,000-year-old dragon Muracan in human form, shamelessly blowing the clan's money on limited edition adult magazines. While Jin scolds the dragon for his lack of caution, his internal focus remains sharp. His progress is staggering. The afternoon brings the most cryptic part of his day, training with his eldest sister, Luna, the strongest of the Runcandel children. Instead of teaching him combat techniques, she forces him to stand for hours with his eyes closed, searching the eye of the mind. It feels like total drudgery to Jin, as this level of mental enlightenment is usually reserved for masters far beyond his current rank. However, he trusts her strength and maintains his focus, unaware that his incredible discipline is already preparing him for a breakthrough that even 9-star knights struggle to achieve. Frustration gnaws at Jin as he obsesses over the meaning of the eye of the mind, a riddle his sister Luna left for him to solve. He spends sleepless nights questioning why a genius of her caliber would waste his time with seemingly pointless drills, yet he trusts her vision enough to keep pushing. To clear his head, he heads to the morning training grounds where a heavy, competitive tension hangs in the air. Today is sparring day, and for the Guardian cadets, these results dictate their future salaries and status within the clan. In the corner of the field, Jin notices Bellup, a boy who looks more like a trembling prey animal than a warrior. Baffles Jin how someone so cowardly passed the entrance exams, but he quickly dismisses the thought to focus on his own climb. His goal is the intermediate class, where real swords and aura are finally permitted. To get there, the head instructor Garon delivers a daunting challenge. Jin must defeat the top 10 cadets of the day, one after another without a break. As the preliminary matches unfold, Jin's sharp eyes catch something the others missed during Bellup's fight against the aggressive Mesa. While Bellup appears to be losing, Jin realizes the boy is actually moving with an effortless grace, guiding Mesa's blade and creating openings he refuses to take. Bellup isn't failing because of a lack of skill. He is holding back because he is terrified of hurting his opponent. This revelation strikes Jin, highlighting the massive gap between those who merely fight and those who understand the flow of combat. The main event begins, and Jin steps into the center of the ring to face his 10 opponents. He cannot use magic or spiritual power, relying purely on raw swordsmanship to secure his promotion. His first opponent, Eatington, attempts a desperate surprise attack to seize momentum, but Jin's reflexes are too fast. With a calculated sidestep and a precise strike to the ear, Jin disrupts Eatington's balance and ends the duel in seconds. Though the path ahead is long, Jin is more determined than ever to prove he belongs in the intermediate ranks. The real test begins when Mesa Milcano steps forward. She is the top student in the class and a true elite who refuses to be intimidated. To survive the 6 challengers waiting behind her, Jin knows he can't just win, he has to break their spirit. He decides to engage Mesa in a direct, grueling clash of brute strength to prove his absolute superiority. As their wooden swords collide for 5 straight minutes, the shockwaves echo through the hall, leaving the other cadets paralyzed with awe. Mesa is certain her physical power is higher, but she quickly realizes she is being pushed back by a 14-year-old. Desperate to regain control, she puts every ounce of her strength into a final overhead strike, planning a hidden transition into a chokehold if it fails. However, the result defies logic. Her sword shatters instantly upon impact with Jin's. She assumes it's raw power, but the truth is far more terrifying. Jin didn't just swing harder, he used godlike accuracy to strike the exact center of her blade with every single exchange, turning a brawl into a surgical strike. This calculated display of skill strikes fear into the remaining 6 cadets, allowing Jin to sweep through them with ease as they lose the will to fight him head-on. By the end of the session, Jin has secured his spot in the intermediate class, but he isn't finished. With 10 minutes left before lunch, he calls out the one person no one expects, the timid, sleepy-eyed Bellop Schmitz. Jin has seen the hidden talent buried under the boy's cowardice and intends to beat the weakness out of him. He demands Bellop take up his sword, making it clear that in this clan, you either wake up and fight, or you simply don't survive. Bellop stands before Jin with trembling hands and a face drenched in cold sweat, his soul seemingly escaping through his mouth as the entire class watches. The cadets believe Jin is simply being a cruel elite, mocking the weakest boy in the clan for his cowardice. Jin has already fought 10 men and is visibly exhausted, yet he stares Bellop down with a heavy, suffocating intensity. He admits he is likely stronger than anyone left on the field, but he points out that Bellop is the only one who remains completely unscathed. This creates a strange tension because Jin isn't looking for a sparring partner, he is hunting for a real fight. Without warning, Jin lunges forward. He doesn't use the clean, honorable strikes of a training hall. Instead, he flows like a relentless river, throwing sand into Bellop's eyes and slamming a shin into his thigh to bring him to his knees. The spectators are horrified watching their strongest peer transform into a common bully. They wonder where the Runcandel honor has gone as Jin stands over the fallen boy, telling him that mercy is the only reason he's still alive. He demands Bellop stand up and face him seriously, or the next blow will be his last. The atmosphere shifts from a training session to a life-or-death struggle, forcing a hidden power to the surface. To everyone's absolute shock, Bellop's wooden sword begins to glow with a pale, steady light. The class loser has been hiding the ability to manifest aura, a feat that makes his strikes exponentially more lethal. Realizing the danger, Jin commands the instructor to keep this secret under penalty of death. Bellop is no longer crying, he is furious. He charges with superhuman speed, his aura-coated blade snapping Jin's sword like a toothpick and digging deep into Jin's shoulder, heading straight for his heart. Just as the blade is about to turn fatal, Jin moves with a speed that defies his exhaustion. He uses a high-level hand-to-hand technique to deflect the strike with his bare palm and instantly chokes Bellop into submission. When he finally releases the boy, the truth of the bullying comes to light. Jin explains that in a clan as cutthroat as the Runcandels, kindness is a luxury only the powerful can afford. He didn't attack Bellop to humiliate him. He did it to force him to stop being a bootlicker so he could survive the hellhole they live in. By the time the dust settles, the power dynamic of the class has been permanently altered. Jin has successfully awakened a powerful ally, though he warns the instructor not to romanticize the trauma he just inflicted. He acknowledges that while he broke Bellop's spirit to save his life, the weight of that action is his alone to carry. Even as the instructor praises him for acting like a true Runcandel predator, Jin shuts him down with a cold warning to stay in his lane. He has secured a loyal, high-tier talent for his future, but it came at the cost of a friendship that now has to be rebuilt from the ashes of a brutal betrayal. Siren Runcandel sits at the heart of the Black Sea, a place where even the most vicious monsters steer clear of his overwhelming pressure. He thrives in this brutal ecosystem of eat or be eaten, but his meditation is interrupted by a report from his right-hand man, Khan. As Khan details Jin's recent uprising at the training ground, a rare grin spreads across the patriarch's face. He is fascinated by Jin's philosophy of using absolute power to dominate while still choosing to protect the weak. To test if these ideals actually hold weight in a world of blades, Siren orders a special trial for his youngest son. This decision forces a massive shift in Jin's path as he reaches his 15th year. Having officially achieved 3-star knight status, he enters his final break before moving to the intermediate class. While other elite cadets scramble to buy custom swords for the challenges ahead. Jin receives a legendary gift from his eldest sister, Luna. She bypasses the family armory to hand him Bradamante, a snow-white blade and the twin to the first patriarch's sword. This gift is a massive advantage as the sword is designed to resonate with shadow energy, though Muracan warns that Jin must reach at least 5-star spiritual power before he can safely awaken its true, dangerous potential. However, the peace of the holiday is shattered when Instructor Garon summons Jin for an urgent briefing. Missions are usually reserved for older, intermediate students, but Jin has been assigned a combat operation that begins the moment his break ends. This creates a suspicious new problem, as Jin isn't going alone, his leading 10 members of the beginner class into a real-world conflict. The sudden assignment feels like a setup, forcing Jin to realize that his survival odds have just plummeted as he is pushed into a premature baptism of fire. To make the test harder, Garon had split the cadets into 2 groups. While the other group was packed with top-tier elites, Jin was given the low-ranked underdogs. This forced Jin to act as a shield and a strategist for the weakest members of the class. For 3 days, they searched the rainy grasslands and forests near the Beastmen territory, finding nothing but peaceful fishermen from the Watertail tribe. The lack of action made Jin uneasy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath before a disaster. The silence finally shattered at 2 a.m. on the 3rd night. Bellup, one of Jin's teammates, came sprinting through the sleet, gasping for air and forgetting all military protocol. He reported that the Elite Group 2 had been ambushed and forced into hiding. They couldn't even fire their signal flares for help because as they were being hunted, not by the feared White Wolf beastmen, but by a coordinated group of humans. The realization hit Jin instantly. The real danger wasn't the monsters of the forest, but the predators hiding in the shadows of his own species. This was the moment his father had engineered, and he had to move now if he wanted to keep his comrades alive. 10 Runcandel cadets are missing, and the forest is stained with the blood of children. Jin stares at the crimson puddles outside an empty hideout, realizing his second group of subordinates has been hunted down. He didn't expect a human ambush during a Beastman subjugation mission, but the reality is clear. Someone is bold enough to target the Runcandel name. This isn't just a failure of the mission. It's a direct threat to Jin's authority and the lives of those under his command. The trail leads west, fresh enough that the blood hasn't dried. Jin pushes his exhausted body to the limit, accompanied only by Bellup as they sprint through the dense tree line. He knows that if they don't reach the cadets before dawn, the rising sun will expose their positions and seal their fate. The stakes are higher than just survival because the attackers aren't just killing, they are capturing. They find the remaining members of Group 2 engaged in a desperate struggle against 2 masked 4-star warriors. To end the fight instantly, Jin coats a dagger in spiritual energy, a power that thins the weapon's presence and makes it nearly invisible to the senses. He hurls the blade, silence turning into a death rattle as it lodges in the back of an attacker's skull. Within seconds, the second enemy is crippled and pinned under Jin's knee, his Achilles tendon severed. The victory is hollow when Jin realizes one cadet, Mesa, is missing. Under the cold pressure of Jin's blade and the terrifying promise of Runcandel retribution, the surviving captive breaks. He reveals they belong to Kinslow, a radical revolutionary group planning to use Mesa for propaganda after a public execution. The group is stationed nearby with 20 members, and they have no idea that a Runcandel heir is coming for them. Jin honors his word and grants the man a painless death with a single clean stroke of Bradamante. There is no time to wait for reinforcements or send word back to the clan. Mesa is being moved toward a beastman stronghold, and every second Jin wastes is a second closer to her death. He wipes the blood from his steel, turning his gaze toward the heart of the enemy territory. He will handle this alone. The mission had spiraled into a nightmare. Jin never expected to cross paths with Kinslow, a notorious terrorist group from his past life, let alone discover their plan to kidnap the Runcandel girls. With a fellow cadet named Mesa already in their clutches, time is the only thing Jin doesn't have. He knows that if he doesn't act now, she'll be lost forever behind the borders of the Beastman's territory. This creates an immediate conflict with his own team. The remaining cadets are battered and terrified, pleading with Jin to wait for reinforcements. They see a suicide mission. Jin sees a responsibility he can't ignore. He silences their protests with the cold authority of a true Runcandel, ordering them to retreat while he vanishes into the grasslands alone. He isn't being reckless, he's playing a hand the enemy doesn't know he holds. To find his target, Jin pulls off a feat of magic that would make a master wizard weep. By multicasting seismic sense to feel the ground and wind pursuit to track the air, he creates a magical radar to hunt the kidnappers. This level of control is impossible for a 15-year-old, yet Jin handles it with the ease of a veteran. The trail is fresh, and the hunt is on. However, the terrorists aren't amateurs. They've dug hidden trenches in the high grass, waiting to ambush any pursuers. When 3 masked men, 2 warriors, and a mage spring their trap, they treat Jin like a joke, even betting gold coins on how fast he'll die. They assume he's a helpless brat protected by invisible guardians. That's a mistake that costs them everything. Before the first warrior, Clark, can even finish his taunt, Jin secretly weaves a 4-star Windblade spell. In a flash of invisible mana, Clark's leg is severed before he can even swing his sword. The psychological shift is instant. The hunters suddenly realize they are the ones being preyed upon. The battle turns into a showcase of Jin's hidden arsenal. When the mage lashes out with a flame whip, Jin doesn't even flinch. Thanks to the Phoenix Heart he absorbed, fire magic below 6-star rank is essentially a warm breeze to him. He walks through the inferno untouched, driving his blade into the second warrior's throat. The mage panics, switching to ice magic, but the Beast King's pendant gifted by Jin's sister acts as an absolute shield. Every spell shatters against an invisible wall. With a final cold remark about having a nice sister, Jin cuts the mage down, leaving 3 corpses in the grass. He quickly disguises the magical wounds to look like sword strikes, staying one step ahead of anyone who might investigate. Mesa is still out there, and Jin is just getting started. The smell of smoke and the sting of sweat were Jin's only companions as he pushed his body past its breaking point. He had been awake for over 24 hours and his mana was dangerously low after the strain of multicasting, but the trail of the Kinslow kidnappers was finally warm. Seeing the carriage tracks in the mud confirmed his suspicion. They had Mesa and they were heading deep into Beastmen territory. He knew the enemy was arrogant. They viewed the Runcandel cadets as mere children playing soldier, which was a fatal mistake. While they left sloppy tracks and minimal guards, Jin realized this disrespect was his greatest tactical advantage. If they didn't fear him, they wouldn't expect a calculated massacre. As he reached the dense, damp forest surrounding their branch headquarters, a new problem arose. A direct assault against dozens of enemies would result in Mesa being used as a human shield. To prevent this, he needed to replace their confidence with pure, unadulterated panic. Jin summoned the crimson mana of a 4-star flame whip, lashing out at the trees until the wet wood finally yielded to the heat. He then unleashed a wind wave, a massive gust that fanned the sparks into a localized inferno. As the forest turned into a roaring furnace, Jin slipped into the smoke. The Phoenix Heart in his chest granted him the heat resistance he needed to move through the flames like a ghost. The headquarters erupted in chaos. Warriors scrambled for water buckets while magicians desperately cast ice spells, leaving them completely vulnerable. Moving through the haze, Jin launched a shadowy dagger into the throat of a distracted magician before dragging the corpse into the fire. Another warrior fell seconds later, never seeing the blade that emerged from the smoke. The commander of the unit finally sensed the trap and ordered his men to form a perimeter, but Jin was already behind him. Springing from the flames, Jin engaged the leader in a brutal struggle. To keep the kill silent, he allowed the man to tackle him, using the Forbidden Meyer-style martial arts to dislocate his own shoulder and twist his body into an impossible angle. With a sickening crack, he snapped the commander's neck, ending the threat before a single alarm could be raised. After popping his shoulder back into place, Jin looted the leader's keys and entered the stone building. The halls were eerie and decorated with bizarre cultist symbols, but he didn't stop until he found the heavy iron door to the basement. Inside, he found Mesa chained to a wall, bruised but alive. As he cut her shackles with a burst of aura, her first instinct was to warn him of the danger rather than cry for help. Jin felt a surge of cold fury at her injuries, but before he could lead her out, a massive explosion rocked the foundations of the building. The mission was far from over, and the true threat had just arrived. The ground beneath the Kinslow headquarters groans as a series of violent explosions rock the foundation. Jin braces himself, shielding the injured Mesa as the ceiling threatens to cave in. He knows they have to move now or be buried alive, but the destruction isn't an earthquake. It feels calculated, powerful, and far beyond the capabilities of the local magicians. The Beastmen. The outside world has transformed into a literal hellscape of fire and corpses. Out of the inferno steps a nightmare clad in white fur, a warrior of the White Wolf tribe. Standing over 2 meters tall with piercing blue eyes, the Beastman carries a colossal hammer capable of shattering stone like glass. He is a 6-star combatant, a natural-born killing machine who views humans as mere playthings. Recognizing the dire shift in survival odds, Mesa begs Jin to leave her and run, but Jin has a different plan. To keep her from throwing her life away, he knocks her unconscious with a swift strike to the neck, choosing to face the monster alone. The warrior introduces himself as Quasito Truca. When Jin reveals his name as a Runcandel, the Beastman's amusement turns to pure ancient hatred. The White Wolves loathe the Runcandels for the death of their god hero, Javier, and Quasito demands an honorable duel to offer Jin's soul as a sacrifice. Jin agrees, knowing that the tribe's rigid code of honor is his only shield. By engaging in a formal duel, Quasito is bound by law to leave the unconscious Mesa alone and fight fairly. The battle begins with a terrifying display of speed and power. Despite his massive frame, Quasito moves like a blur. His hammer whistles through the air with bone-crushing force. Jin is pushed to his absolute limit, his wrists screaming in pain after parrying just a single blow. He calculates that his body will shatter after 10 more hits. He could summon his sister Luna for help, but doing so would mean admitting he isn't ready for the path of a master. To win, he needs a wild card, something the Beastman cannot see coming. As Quasito delivers a strike that sends Jin crashing into a stone wall, the world goes blurry, blood pools in Jin's mouth, and his vision doubles. The Beastman raises his hammer for the final execution, confident in his victory. But Jin reaches for the forbidden power Muracan warned him about, the awakening of his sword, Bradamonte. He unleashes his spiritual energy, forcing it into the blade before his consciousness slips away. Time seems to fracture. One moment Quasito is swinging for the kill, The next, he is frozen in a pocket of unnatural darkness. When the world snaps back, a black blade is buried deep in the beastman's chest. Jin stands there, transformed, his hair flickering like a dark flame. Shadows from the corpses, the trees, and the flickering fires begin to crawl across the ground, deserting the light to be absorbed into Jin's body. The hunter has become the prey, and as Quasito falls, Jin's voice rings out with an unsettling, hollow rasp, echoing the beastman's own words back to him. To survive a losing battle, Jin awakens the forbidden power of his sword, Bradamante, but the cost is nearly fatal. As he draws in every shadow in the vicinity, his body begins to tear apart from spiritual energy congestion. This is the exact death sentence Muracan warned him about. A surge of power so violent it kills 9 out of 10 warriors instantly. Jin is trapped in a waking nightmare, feeling his organs freeze and burn simultaneously, yet he refuses to lose consciousness. If he faints, he dies, and if he uses his one-time emergency pendant to survive, he fails his father's hidden test. Jin knows his father, Siren, is watching this mission to see if his son is worthy of the Runcandel name. To Siren, a son who survives through luck or items is a disappointment to be discarded. This pressure forces Jin to push through the agony, ignoring hallucinations of his past life's failures to focus on the chaos within. He begins a desperate spiritual release, manually sorting the clashing energies like pebbles. This focus pays off as the pain suddenly vanishes, replaced by a massive, overflowing reservoir of spiritual power. He hasn't just survived the congestion, he has mastered it. With the danger past, Jin secures his unconscious comrade, Mesa, but senses a lingering presence in the ruins. Expecting another assassin, he finds instead a terrified young man named Sember Bill. This is the missing heir the cadets were originally sent to find, though Jin realizes with a bit of guilt that he had completely forgotten the mission during the heat of battle. Saving Sember turns out to be a massive political win, as the heir of the powerful Bill merchant clan now owes Jin a life debt. As they trek back to safety, Sember reveals a chilling detail about his kidnapping. He was lured into the trap by a woman who looked exactly like his dead lover. This revelation immediately points Jin toward a dangerous figure from his past life, the Transformation Master Bouvard Gaston. Jin realizes that the kidnapping wasn't just a random act. It was a coordinated effort between the Transformation Master and the Kinzalo group. This connection creates a new problem, as Jin now has to investigate these shadows without drawing the premature wrath of the Zipful followers. By the time the Runcandel reinforcements arrive, Jin has secured both his teammate and a powerful future ally. While Sember is moved to tears by Jin's supposed sincerity in rescuing him, Jin remains cold and calculating. He has passed his father's test, significantly increased his spiritual energy, and identified a major conspiracy. The trial of the beginner class is over, but as Jin looks toward the intermediate class, he knows he must now hunt down the Transformation Master to truly secure his future. The news of Jin's mission hit the Garden of Swords like a physical blow, leaving the elite Runcandel clan in a state of absolute disbelief. While the matriarch Rosa smiled at the report of a flawless victory, her daughters Mew and Anne dismissed the feat as a lie, refusing to believe a 3-star novice could take down a White Wolf beastman. However, the Tona twins didn't share their sister's skepticism. Having been bullied by Jin since their childhood at Storm Castle, they knew their brother was a monster, and the prospect of him joining them in the intermediate class sent them into a spiral of genuine terror. This fear created an opportunity for the older sisters to tighten their grip on the family hierarchy. Mew and Anne, both 7-star knights, mocked the twins for their cowardice but offered a dangerous solution to keep the youngest sibling in check. They agreed to lend the twins their slaves, failed senior cadets, who, despite being stuck in the intermediate class for a decade, were still 5-star predators. With these enforcers at their disposal, the Tona twins saw a chance to finally trample Jin before he could climb any higher, turning the intermediate class into a literal jungle where the law of the strongest would be enforced with blood. While his siblings plotted his downfall, Jin returned home to find a different kind of trouble waiting in the form of a furious Muracan. The ancient dragon sensed immediately that Jin had ignored every warning and awakened the sword, a reckless move that usually ends in a painful death. But this creates a new reality for Jin. The spiritual congestion didn't kill him, it acted as a catalyst that surged his power directly into the 4-star stage in a single week. The risk was immense, but the gain was undeniable, leaving even the grumpy Muracan impressed by the sheer luck of Solderet's contractor. Jin emerged from the ordeal stronger and ready for the next level of training, unaware that his advancement had officially painted a target on his back. His sisters were no longer just watching from the sidelines. They had actively deployed 5-star obstacles to ensure his welcome to the intermediate class would be a fight for survival. In the quiet of the steam, Jin summons a ball of black energy. It is 4-star spiritual energy, and though it looks the same as before, its weight is immense. This power now rivals the destructive force of 6-star mana or aura, making Jin stronger in raw output than he ever was in his past life. However, his swordsmanship remains at 3-star. This creates a gap in efficiency, as spiritual power is a tool meant for the blade. To truly dominate, he sets a firm deadline. He must reach 6-star swordsmanship within 5 years. The path forward is a minefield of political traps. His mother, Rosa, offers him the room formerly belonging to the eldest son, Joshua. It is a prestigious reward, but Jin sees the hook inside the bait. Accepting the room would signal his intent to take the throne, painting a massive target on his back for every sibling to hit. He politely declines, choosing to stay in his modest quarters. This move confuses the servants but satisfies his mother, who realizes her youngest son is far more perceptive than he appears. Training begins the next day as Jin leads his 9 loyal cadets into the intermediate class. This place is a wilderness governed by factions and led by the patriarch's brother, Jin Runcandel. As the newcomers arrive, the 150 senior cadets attempt to break them. They surround the rookies, screaming the clan motto, "The Runcandels have no need for weaklings," in a deafening, coordinated chant designed to induce submission. The Tona twins lead the noise, backed by elite 5-star knights from their older sisters' factions. Pressure is suffocating. Jin doesn't flinch. Instead of lowering his head, he walks directly into the heart of the shouting crowd. The seniors scream louder, expecting him to be intimidated, but Jin is finished with games. In one fluid motion, he draws his sword, Bradamante, and severs the forearm of the 5-star knight standing next to the Tona twins. The screaming stops instantly as blood hits the dirt. The training ground falls into a petrified silence. By maiming a top-tier student in front of a clan elder, Jin has shattered the hierarchy before the first lesson even began. He sheathes his sword and calmly tells the crowd to call a medic. He has sent a clear message to his siblings and the seniors. The welcoming ceremony is over, and the era of his dominance has begun. The silence of the training ground is shattered by a single, agonizing scream. Before anyone can even process the blur of steel, a cadet's arm hits the floor, and the Tona twins are left staring in horror at their youngest brother. Jin stands over the mangled remains of their lackey with a chilling indifference, his blade already back in its sheath. By striking first and without warning, Jin isn't just winning a fight, he is dismantling the twins' authority before the entire intermediate class. This move forces the Tona twins into a desperate corner. If they don't retaliate, their reputation is dead, but if they step forward, they face a brother who clearly knows they've been using their sister's subordinates to bully him. When the twins finally unsheathe their swords in a rage, Jin doesn't even flinch. He ignores their threats entirely to interrogate the bleeding cadet, calmly establishing that the man was targeted for directing killing intent toward a Runcandel. In one swift conversational maneuver, Jin labels the injured man as a member of the Tona faction, officially turning a bloody assault into a legitimate Runcandel battle for dominance. The tension only spikes when Uncle Zed, a powerful 8-star knight, steps onto the field. Instead of apologizing for the chaos, Jin doubles down by claiming he wasn't challenging his brothers, he was challenging Zed himself for organizing such a hostile welcoming ceremony. It's a suicide mission in the eyes of the other cadets, especially when Zed conjures a blade of pure aura and slashes Jin's cheek. However, Jin's gamble pays off. He explains that while he can't defeat Zed yet, a true Runcandel never submits to abuse just because an opponent is stronger. This display of sheer audacity delights the battle-hungry Zed, who bursts into laughter and validates Jin's status as a true heir of the clan. This shift in power is immediate and absolute. The Tona twins are left trembling as Jin kindly advises them to start fearing him more than their older sisters. The risk of execution has transformed into a massive gain in political capital. Back at the dorms, the ripples of Jin's violence create an unexpected result. Rather than a revenge mob, a delegation of senior cadets arrives at the youngest division's door bearing gifts of alcohol and expensive cigarettes. These unaffiliated students, tired of being tormented by the Tona twins' year-long tyranny, are now looking to curry favor with the rising star. Jin has not only secured his own safety, but has effectively flipped the dormitory hierarchy in a single afternoon. The heavy door clicks shut, and Jin finally lets his mask slip, leaning against the wall as the suffocating tension of the training hall evaporates. Facing his uncle, Zed Runcandel, was a gamble with his life. A single flicker of hesitation would have cost him his head. But the gamble paid off, planting a seed of true pressure in the minds of the instructors and cadets alike. Jin has officially declared war on the Tona twins for control of the intermediate class, fully embracing the brutal Runcandel virtues of fighting and winning that he once despised. The victory in the arena carries a hidden sting as Jin reveals to his nanny, Gilly, that the Tona twins aren't acting alone. He identified a 5-star knight among their ranks who actually belongs to his older sisters, Anne and Mew. These two are already seasoned flag bearers and 7-star warriors who should, by clan law, be above meddling in the affairs of their youngest siblings. Their interference proves they already fear Jin's potential, viewing a 15-year-old boy as a genuine threat to their future power. While Gilly fumes at the unfairness, the black cat Muracan transforms into his human form to join the strategy session. He laments that he cannot simply wipe out the sisters with a flick of his finger, frustrated that the clan is trying to crush its only hope for defeating the rival Zipfel clan. Jin explains that his siblings would be even more ruthless if they knew he was the contractor of the shadow god Solderet. By framing the defeat of their strongest subordinate as a failure of the Tona twins, Jin has successfully driven a wedge between his sisters and his brothers, ensuring the twins will likely face a brutal punishment for their incompetence. The next day, the true hierarchy of the clan is on full display as the Tona twins arrive at training with faces bruised and swollen from their sisters' discipline. Uncle Zed ignores their pathetic state, focusing instead on the privilege reserved only for the direct bloodline, the formless Runcandel swordsmanship. Unlike the rigid styles taught to common cadets, this art relies on the supernatural physical senses inherent in their DNA. As Zed prepares to teach them the raw, destructive power of their lineage, Jin stands ready to master the very techniques that will eventually allow him to tear the clan's corrupt foundations apart. Uncle Zed leads the brothers to a mountain of heavy metal spheres called clear stones, setting the stage for a training session that is as deafening as it is deadly. These stones are the Runcandel secret to mastering perfect force. Strike too softly and they emit a nauseating, murky groan, but strike with the exact speed and power required and they ring with a beautiful, pure echo. However, there is a lethal catch to this simple exercise. The pressure spikes when Zed prepares his third demonstration, and Jin's instincts scream a warning as he recalls the shifting weight inside the stones. He tackles the twins to the ground just as Zed's blade shatters the sphere, sending a lethal spray of steel marbles whistling over their heads. They are the first siblings since the legendary Luna to survive this rite of passage unscathed, a feat that fills Jin with quiet pride even as he realizes his uncle is just as insane as the rest of the family. While Jin and the twins begin the grueling task of repeating these strikes for hours, the mental toll becomes a new enemy. The constant, failing thuds are so repulsive they make the twins vomit, yet Jin pushes through the exhaustion, using the brakes to refine his aura control. This creates a new problem for the twins, who are barely holding on, but Jin's past life of struggle gives him the grit to endure. He remains focused on the long game, knowing that if even his mediocre brothers eventually become flag-bearers, he is destined to surpass them. Far from the training hall, Luna sips tea while privately investigating the shadows of Jin's past. She remains convinced that the assassination attempt Jin faced as a child was real, even if her nanny suggests he might have lied. The mystery deepens because no evidence has surfaced in 5 years, leading Luna to suspect her sisters, Anne and Mew. As Jin bleeds and sweats to break Luna's training records, his eldest sister senses an omen of a much larger conspiracy brewing within the clan. The Tona twins collapse at 9 p.m., their bodies finally giving out after a brutal day in the clear stone training room. While the medical team carries them off on stretchers, Jin remains standing, though his legs tremble and his mind rings with exhaustion. He knows he was only 30 minutes away from joining them on the floor, yet his uncle Zed watches with hidden awe. To Zed, Jin is a terrifyingly gifted anomaly, more talented than the future patriarch, Joshua, but his excellence is a double-edged sword. Born too late to claim the throne without a civil war, Jin's rapid growth is a seed of future chaos that could tear the Runcandel clan apart from the inside. A month of this grueling routine passes in a tense peace, but the political storm finally breaks when the intermediate class missions are announced. Under the influence of Jin's hostile older sisters, the youngest division is handed death sentence, a monster subjugation mission in an unprotected zone. For these low-ranked cadets, facing orcs in the wild is a suicide mission designed to humiliate Jin. If he steps in to protect them, he proves he is weak and reliant on his sister Luna's shadow. If he lets them go, they likely die. While the other cadets mock the youngest division and tell them to start writing their wills, Mesa and the rest of Jin's followers resolve to fight. They refuse to be a burden or give the enemy the satisfaction of seeing them beg for mercy. They prepare for war, knowing that returning alive is the only way to crush the pride of those who want them dead. Back in the hidden training room, the atmosphere is heavy with the scent of ozone and blood. The Tona twins have become surprisingly obedient, moving their practice to the corner to avoid hitting Jin with stray debris from their exploding stones. They've realized that their younger brother is a beast on a completely different level. As Jin pushes through the pain of a fresh injury to his flank, he enters a trance-like state, sensing the trajectory of every moving object even with his eyes closed. Just as he touches the edge of a new power, Zed stands up to interrupt. The training is over, the missions have arrived, and the real test of survival begins now. The Runcandel clan has officially thrown Jin into a death trap. While his older brothers, the Tona twins, are sent on a boring diplomatic mission to attend imperial parties, Jin has been assigned a high-stakes solo assassination. His target is the lover of Talaris, the master of the Hidden Palace. Talaris is a neutral powerhouse known as the Abyssal Spider, and she is famously horizontal with anyone who touches her playthings. This mission isn't just a test of skill, it's a calculated move by his older sisters to ensure he never returns. To make matters worse, the target is hiding in Mammoth, a notorious lawless zone usually reserved for elite guardian knights. For an intermediate cadet like Jin, entering this territory is practically a suicide mission. Even the Tona twins, who usually despise him, can't help but show a flicker of concern at the sheer insanity of the task. But Jin remains unnervingly calm, shocking his uncle Zed by accepting the mission without a single complaint. He knows the client is the Sendler clan, who want their disgraced relative silenced before he leaks family secrets to the Hidden Palace. Before departing, Jin leaves his brothers with a chilling display of his growing power. He draws his sword and shatters a training stone with a single, perfect strike, a feat that should have been impossible at his level. He warns the twins to choose their loyalties carefully between him and their sisters, leaving them terrified of the monster their younger brother is becoming. This newfound sensory clarity and strength give Jin the confidence he needs to face the lawless streets of Mammoth alone. Disguised as a common traveler with dyed hair and a hidden blade, Jin sets off on horseback. While his subordinates and his nanny, Gilly, fear for his life, Jin feels a rare sense of liberation. He plans to use his past life knowledge of Mammoth's underground markets and spy networks to navigate the danger. For the first time, he is free from the watchful eyes of the clan, ready to unleash his forbidden magic and spiritual power in a city where the only rule is survival.